They thought evil always moved with noise and violence, but it could also hide in silence. Stay until the end to see how the story unfolds and the incredible role his mother played. Like, subscribe, and share to follow the story. At the edge of the Burkina Bay savanna, where red earth met the calm waters of the marsh, lived Awa, a woman of slowness and restraint. She moved through her days as one walks on sacred dust without unnecessary noise. Her gestures carried the memory of ancient reigns, and her gaze seemed to listen to the world before seeing it. Around her, the village breathed softly. Distant songs of women, children's laughter beneath the baobab, the wind playing with millet leaves. Her only son had left this land for the city, taking with him a part of her breath. That morning, as Awa watered her garden, the air felt peaceful, yet the ancestors, unseen, were already holding their breath. The phone vibrated against Awa's cloth like a discreet warning. Her son's voice crossed the warm morning air, familiar and comforting, bringing a gentle smile to her face. Their words were simple and ordinary, woven with tenderness and respect. Then the voice faded, as if dissolving into the wind. But the expected silence never came. Through the still open phone, other sounds emerged, the hum of an engine, doors slamming, muffled voices. Her son's voice returned, changed, harder, unfamiliar. Awa felt her heart tighten. These were not words meant for a mother. They carried the weight of secrecy, the scent of danger. Without moving, frozen between earth and sky, Awa understood that the invisible thread binding a mother to her child had just trembled. And when that thread trembles, destiny has already begun its march. Night fell upon the village without bringing rest. Heat settled inside Awa's hut like a silent presence. Familiar sounds faded, replaced by distant insects and the heavy breath of darkness. Sitting upright on a mat, Awa pressed her hands together. The words she had heard returned again and again, circling her mind like a vulture above unseen prey. She knew neither the city's roads nor its traps, but her body knew. In her chest, an ancient worry, passed down from mothers before her, burned slowly. That night, Awa understood that her son was walking on land where light is easily lost, and she knew, without yet knowing how, that she would have to leave the village to reach him. At the first light of day, Awa left the coolness of her hut to seek wisdom where it still rested. The village was waking slowly, but some spirits never slept. She went to the elder, the one whose tired eyes could see farther than youthful gazes. In the cool shade of the workshop, silence spoke as loudly as words. Awa shared her nameless unease, the heavy fear that did not come from her alone. She named neither crimes nor faults, yet the danger was there, tangible like a blade hidden beneath dust. She understood then that some paths are not chosen, they impose themselves, and when elders listen without opposing, it means destiny has already knocked at the door. When the sun fully rose, Awa had already made her choice. She folded a few simple clothes, tied her most modest cloth, and entrusted her hut to silence. The village watched her leave without a sound, like an old leaf detaching from a tree. The road opened before her, long and dusty. Each step carried her farther from the land that had given her birth, yet closer to her son's troubled heart. Awa moved without haste, carried by a force older than fear. Behind her, the savanna held its breath. The city announced itself long before it appeared. Noise rose like a thick, continuous wave. When Awa set foot on the gray earth of Ouagadougou, she immediately felt the difference. Here, the ground did not keep secrets. It crushed them. Horns, Hurried crowds, dust lifted by engines formed a whirlwind trying to swallow her. Yet Awa walked straight ahead, as if guided by an invisible thread. She had not come to understand the city, but to reclaim what still belonged to her. Guided by memory and instinct, Awa arrived where the city smelled of iron and burnt oil. The garage opened like a hot mouth, swallowing men and spitting out noise. Dismantled engines lay on the ground, silent witnesses to relentless labor. Awa stepped aside in the shade of a weary tree. She watched patiently, letting time do its work. In that harsh place, she already felt her son's presence like a vibration in the air. She knew the moment was approaching when eyes would meet and past would collide with present. The shadow of the tree stretched as Yaya finally appeared in the garage courtyard. His steps echoed on the dusty ground, but his gaze was elsewhere, anxious and tense. When their eyes met, Ava felt a shiver run through her bones, as if time itself was holding its breath. All around, the noise of work continued, indifferent to this moment of truth. A mother and her son, separated by distance and silence, were finally reunited. The city seemed to fade around them, leaving only the fragile yet powerful bond that connected them. In a hidden corner of the garage, the black briefcase lay, silent and heavy with secrets. Awa felt its weight, not just in her hands, but in the air around her. Each bill, each envelope, each folded paper seemed to whisper a dangerous truth. Yaya opened it slowly. The white powder, stacks of bills, and the code-filled notebook revealed the full extent of the trap he had fallen into. Awa stepped back slightly, realizing this was no longer merely a question of survival, but of justice and courage. The world her son thought he knew had just cracked. Sitting at the edge of the bed, Yaya seemed crushed by the weight of truth. Awa approached, placing a firm hand on his shoulder, and in that simple gesture, a pact was formed. It was not a pact of flight or fear, but of shared strength. They had not yet faced the shadow looming before them, but together they were ready. In the silence of the room, only the creaking fan bore witness to their resolve. A mother and her son, bound by blood and courage, were about to confront the invisible danger. 2 days later, the plan was set. In a discreet district of the city, Yaya and Awa observed the warehouse where the network collected its goods. Every movement was calculated, every detail noted. The briefcase would be used as bait. Yaya would pretend to deliver the package while their allies, in the shadows, watched the criminals. Awa, even hidden in a vehicle, refused to remain passive. Her courage was greater than fear, and the bond with her son made her invincible in the eyes of those who underestimated her strength. The day of the delivery arrived. The wind carried the city's heat and the scent of burnt oil. Yaya held the briefcase carefully, each step echoing like a drum in the silent courtyard. Behind him, Awa remained in the shadows, watching, ready to intervene if danger appeared. The network knew nothing of the mother's presence or the plan in place. The moment was tense, charged with the possibility of chaos. Every look, every movement, every breath was part of the trap about to close. The first gunshot tore through the air, breaking the calculated calm. Kareem's men fell, surprised and disorganized. In the confusion, time seemed to slow. Dust rose, weapons glinted in the sun, and every breath became a decision. Yaya, his gaze burning, stood tall. Behind him, Awa felt the energy of the fight coursing through her veins. The trap set by Commander Bako had closed, but the shadow of uncertainty remained. Among stacks of bills and weapons, truth and danger danced together, tightly entwined. In the heart of the turmoil, a silhouette emerged from the shadows, A supposed ally whose gaze had avoided theirs from the start revealed his true nature. His reckless action endangered the fragile balance of the trap. Adawa then understood that the danger did not come only from visible weapons, but also from corrupted hearts. Betrayal, silent and cold, spread like poison. Yet within the chaos, the determination of the mother and son hardened. They realized that survival now required more than courage. It demanded ruthless clarity. The betrayal caused a brutal rupture. Gunfire multiplied, turning the courtyard into a maze of danger. Yaya grabbed his mother's hand and pulled her through dust and shattered concrete. Awa, despite her age, moved forward with unexpected strength, guided by instinct and maternal love. Around them, the walls seemed to close in, but the night still offered hidden paths. The escape was not a defeat, but a promise of survival, a necessary step before the final confrontation. After a long escape, their steps led them out of the city toward a forgotten place. An ancient sanctuary stood there, hidden by tall grasses and time-warped trees. The stones still bore the marks of old rituals. Awa felt a familiar presence surround her, as if the ancestors were watching over them. Yaya, exhausted, found in this sacred silence a renewed strength. The refuge was not only a physical shelter, but a space where the spirit could rise again before the final trial. Night wrapped the sanctuary in a deep veil. Around the faint fire, shadows danced on the ancient stones. Awa fell into a restless sleep, crossed by visions. She saw ancestral figures rise from the red earth, their silhouettes blending with smoke and stars. These visions did not speak, but showed. They revealed a path shaped by sacrifice and truth. Yaya, awake, watched the sky, sensing that something unseen was preparing itself. This night was not mere rest. It marked a silent initiation before the final confrontation. At dawn, the sanctuary seemed to hold its breath. The night's visions had left an invisible but profound mark. Awa rose with renewed determination, as if the ancestors had etched their strength into her. Yaya understood that the time of refuge was over. They set out again toward the city, where the shadows still spread. Each step was heavier, yet surer. They were no longer fleeing. They were returning, carrying a truth ready to erupt, aware that the final confrontation was drawing near. The city rose before them, heavier and darker than before. Guided by gathered information and the silent strength of the ancestors, Alewa and Yaya reached the nerve center of the network. A discreet, almost ordinary building concealed the source of the evil. Inside, the air was thick with secrets. Each corridor seemed to swallow the sound of their steps. They knew the danger would be absolute, with no escape. But this time, fear no longer held the same place. They had come not to survive, but to end the shadow devouring their world. When everything was over, silence returned. Heavy, yet soothing. The network had been broken, not by violence alone, but by truth laid bare. The walls, once filled with fear, now seemed emptied of its grip. Awa and Yaya stepped out of the building at dawn. The city, still asleep, breathed differently. The shadow had withdrawn, giving way to a fragile but real light. They did not become celebrated heroes, but silent guardians. Their story was now woven into that of the ancestors, carried by the wind, the red earth, and the memory of the living.